Howdy, folks. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jason Ramelsberg. I'm the Application Support and Pre-Sales Manager here at CDI. We will get started here in just a couple of minutes. Just give everyone a couple of minutes to get logged in. Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So what we wanted to do is kind of go through and present some of the best solutions or some of the ones that got a lot of oohs and ahs, especially at our user group meetings this month or this year. So what we want to do is, as we go through here, we're going to talk about a few of our different examples. So today we're going to go through a few, and one of them I literally just finished about an hour ago. It was something, a demo I'm doing for someone, a newer feature, a newer function that would be really cool for some of our users. The first two we're going to talk about is how to use Laserfiche forms and workflow to do mass communication. In this scenario, there's two different ones. There's one that's more financial and one that's more governmental. The two examples we're going to use, we'll go into how the workflows are built, what's actually happening, just to give you an idea of how this process would work. We're then going to use the example we did from our first user group meeting this year, the first group of them, where we did an EOP creation, an emergency operating procedure, and the ability to store that data and then come back to it and edit it later. So if you have a form that you create, and this is not just for EOP, and this is not just for mass communication. These are just examples of processes on how to use the tools and create end-to-end solutions that your staff can use. The third one we're going to do is based off of more of a financial institution. We're going to create a wire transfer, and we're going to send that information out through DocuSign. And then that's going to go straight from forms to DocuSign for signature, and then immediately back into the repository directly from there. All of it initiated from Laserfiche forms, which is a really nifty solution. And then the last one is we get a lot of questions about how to merge PDF documents. As you know, in Laserfiche itself, anything that's not an image document, something like a scanned image, a TIFF image, any of those kind of documents, Laserfiche itself treats those as read-only. Well, excuse me, sorry about that. So Laserfiche treats all electronic documents, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, CAD drawings, GIS, any of that. Anything that is stored within the repository that is not an image document is treated as read-only within the client, within the web client or the Windows client. Now, that doesn't mean the document itself is read-only. It just means that if you need to edit the PDF, you need to edit it in a PDF editing tool like Adobe Acrobat or Foxit Pro or one of those kind of documents or editing tools. Same thing goes for Word documents. The Word document in Laserfiche is read-only, whereas the exported Word document is not. And so as we go through this, the PDF merging function, you'll see, uses Laserfiche workflow to merge PDFs together. And a good example of this is some of our customers, one of our customers specifically that I'm thinking of has a lot of statements, and those statements sometimes need to be merged into one, or maybe there's statements and then check images or something like that that need to be merged into the statement, and both of them are PDF files. So this gives you the ability to merge those items together. So a couple of housekeeping items. All participants are muted. If you do need to ask a question, please feel free to use the question panel. You can put the questions there in the question box. Slides and screenshots will be available upon request, although there's not a lot of slides and or screenshots in this. This is just a live demo. And then this session is being recorded. Now, as we get started, I've kind of got a flow that we'll go through. And if you do have questions during the process, please add them into the question box, and I will do my best to get those taken care of. That way we can get those answered while we're looking at the demo, if that makes sense. So I've got a question panel up here. I've cleared out all the other questions. And as I clear them out, I'll just delete your questions. So if everybody's ready, let's go ahead and get going. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions. The first thing I want to do is let me go ahead and open up my repository. And we're going to start with our mass communication form. So in this mass communication form, this is one from a governmental perspective, where maybe you need to send out new business licenses to all of your new businesses in the last week. Maybe you need to go through a database of parks and rec reservations, like there's been a water main burst and this park is now closed, and you need to let everybody know, and you don't want to have to do that manually with writing an email to each person. Or maybe it's as simple as you have vendors that you use. In my case, I'm going to choose the vendor insurance request, and I'm going to say this is not a test, because this section here, this is really nice. This allows you to send just the test to yourself so that you can see what's coming through before it actually goes through the process. Now, in my case, let's go ahead and do a vendor request. I'm going to make it not a test. I'm going to say CDI City requests updated insurance information, and we can make adjustments here. So I'm just going to grab some random names of folks that are on the call. Let's do Kathy. And that way you can see as I make this change that this is the actual data that's going out. So if I hit submit, this form is now going to go into a holding pattern in forms for someone to review and then approve. So now if I come back here to my forms inbox, we have an initiator review that just started for mass communication. So if I open this initiator review, what this does is this allows you to create the email and then allow it to go out, if that makes sense. So in this case, I've created the email that I want to send. That is now being sent to someone else for submission. And then I simply hit submit, and that document is now passed along for review. Now, when I did that, I'm going to go ahead and minimize my folders here, or my browser, and let's open my email and scroll up to the top. And I have my insurance update that I did just a minute ago. Let me get rid of those right before we were doing this. And we are going to do our requests. So actually, let me go back. This is the one. So these here, you'll notice say Kathy Ross on them. And we are now sending the email to Food by Jennifer. But here's the cool part. Notice how these emails have our logos in them. They've got rich text formatting. They have the ability to put information from different data sources. For instance, a database driving like a mail merge, essentially. You have the options there to do this. So I'm going to say Food by Jennifer. It's that time of year again. The city of CDI requires updated insurance information for all vendors. And I'm simply going to click the link down here to submit my information. So now when I click on this link, it's going to take me to Laserfiche Forms. Now this would be a forms portal. This would be a public portal for your, in this case, your citizens or your customers or your members to connect to. And in this case, you can drag and drop and upload your new files. So if I come down here to my upload folder, I'm going to grab my Accord form, and just for the sake of putting a few extra things in here, we'll just grab a couple of other PDFs. When I drag this in, I can let go. Those are now attached to my process, and all I have to do is hit submit. Now, from the citizen side, or the vendor side in this case, I've now done basically what I need to do, and I can know that my information is where it should be. However, if I come back here to the government repository up here at the top in my browser, and I go to my vendors folder, and I go to Food by Jennifer, you'll notice that now I have the submission of the form of her submitting her documents, as well as those 3 attached files that were part of the process. So if I click on this Accord 25 form, you'll see that this is the Accord insurance form that was uploaded to Laserfiche. So they were able to upload a copy of their insurance and put that in Laserfiche directly. And now you can run reports on that. So for instance, if you wanted to run reports on a weekly basis of all of the Accord forms or the insurance forms and things like that that were captured as part of this process, then you could do that. You could even add templates to the items as they come in if you wanted to. So for instance, if you had an insurance template or you had a vendor's template, you could use that information there as well. Now, let's go back to the mass communication piece and do one more. So I'm going to come back here and just let the form reload. And this time we can do new business licenses. Now this one's a little bit different because what this one is doing is this one isn't requesting information from the person. This one is actually sending information to them. And what I mean by that is you may have a system that generates documents that get placed in Laserfiche, in this case, a business license. Now, when we want to send those business licenses out, you may want to do it one at a time, or you may want to send them out in bulk. So in this case, I'm simply going to choose the contact new business licenses. And I can say, welcome to CDI City. That's my generic subject line of the email. And then I can have some extra information in here. And again, you can edit this all you want. So just to show you that, again, that this is live, I'm going to simply make the thanks CDI City bold. And then I'm going to underline CDI City right here, just so it's something a little bit different. So now, as I go through this, when I hit submit, I'm going to get a couple of more emails. And those emails will be sent now to the vendors. And let me make sure I didn't leave that in. Nope, I just got the notification on my watch. Outlook is never the fastest. So in this case, I did it as a test, and you'll see that the word test is on there just so that you can see what a test looks like. And if I go to JL Construction, and then Smith Concrete needs insurance, but we won't bother with that one. The JL Construction is a test email. You'll see that there's my underline, there's my bolded, but you'll also see the logo. But then I've got attached the PDF of their business license. So here's a copy of their business license. And we should be all set to go at that point. And so let me just close this out so you guys have a little more room to see. So now I've got my construction, I've got my business license, and that is all set. So we've got a couple of options, one where we just sent one as a test so we can make sure it looks right, and one where we sent it to all the vendors. Now, in this scenario, let me just go ahead and mark that as red. In this scenario, you could send it to whomever. In my case, I'm using a data source to drive this. So if I come here to my, and let me move it over to the other screen. If I come over to the server so you can see the workflows and things that are happening, when the mass communication happened, we either have a test section or a live section, and that's driven by that check mark on whether this is a test email or a live email. But here's what is actually happening. Let's just focus on the live side. When I sent the vendor insurance, I'm looking at a database, whether that's a SQL database or an Excel file or whatever data source you need to look at that workflow can see. And I'm going to find all of my vendors that match my criteria. And then I'm going to format a vendor email. Now, what this is this is actually a Word document with merge fields. So you can design your Word document to have merge fields on it. And if I come down here and open up one of those, and let's go to samples, and I have the mass communication Word document here. When this opens in Microsoft Word, I'm going to say no because I don't want it to connect. All it simply is, and apparently I need to activate Word on this server, all it simply is our logo at the top, a field for the subject, a field for the name, and a field for the email body. Now, in this process, with all of that information, I can then take that in Microsoft Word and I can come down through my process. So I can format the letter, and then you'll notice here when I click on the activity in Microsoft or in workflow for the Microsoft Word mail merge, I have the subject, which is the first name from the data source lookup, the last name from the data source lookup, and whatever subject I put in the form's email. And then the name field that I put at the top is the first name and last name. And then the email body is whatever I did here. And then also I injected a link to the government vendor upload form so that they can upload a copy of their business license. But I'm also injecting a name of their business so that they don't have to type that in the email. So that's the gist of these. The other ones that are a little bit different, they're both using the same concept, but the difference is we're attaching a business license document, or we're attaching a location closed document to the email itself. But here at the email step is where all of that is driven. So I can use the token here for the email, and I can use a token for the for their business license. So that's essentially the mass communication for the government side. We'll do one quick one just for to show kind of the financial side of this. So again, we'll come back here to the form. We go ahead and close out of the ones we were looking at already. If you do want to see, we'll look at the process diagram for this form. It's really super simple. It simply runs the communication workflow. Then you can have an initiator review that holds everything to send, or you can move the initiator review maybe over here so that the initiator reviews it first before the workflow runs. It's then going to run another service task to connect to a workflow. And what that's going to do here is that's going to run the government mass communication workflow as well. This is in the scenario it bypasses this if it's in test mode. And then finally, we're going to save a copy of all this communication to a communication log folder. Now, what that looks like is if I come back to my repository, we were already here for vendors, right? We've got our vendor folder, we've got Smith Concrete, Food by Jennifer, Cities Digital, Bremerton City, and so forth. But I've also got a folder here called Mass Communication Log. So every time a mass communication email is sent out, you may want a copy of that stored to the repository. So the Jonathan Ledbetter Construction Company, when I click on this, this is the business license email, the business license that was attached, and the email will be right next to it. So you have it. So here's the test email for their business license update. Okay. Any again, like I said, throw your questions in the question box. I don't see any currently, but just let us know if you want me to go into something in a little more detail. Let me go ahead and close out of this mass communication log in our government repository. We'll hop over to our financial mass communication version. Let me leave this, just hit leave here. And now we can kind of show a slightly different example. We won't go into as much detail on this one, but it is an option here. Now, I've got the ability here to do email documents to fund administrators, email statements to fund investors, or you can just blast a new document out. We've seen a lot of or send an email blast. We've seen these three already. But what if you need to send a document to a whole group of people? So in my case, we can go through these real quick. We won't actually run all of them, but you've got the ability here to email documents to fund administrators. This would say, okay, I want to email the documents in the folder. So again, if I go to my investments folder here and I go to the 2035 fund, it would go through this and grab the requisite documents that the workflow is looking for, and it will attach all those documents to an email and send them to the fund administrators. And the way I can tell that is which fund am I running what do I want to send documents to? Now, if it's just investors, maybe I'm just sending them the statements of the accounts to all the fund investors, and which funds do I want to send it to? Again, I can email blast to only those people that are part of certain funds. For instance, we have an upcoming webinar about your fund, and then they can have a link right here to register for Zoom to be able to connect to that webinar. But the last one that's really quite nifty is I can have the ability here to attach a document as part of this. And maybe I want to just come up here and say, here is our new prospectus. Now, again, this doesn't have to be just for investment. This could be a way of sending a mass communication attachment to all of your vendors, to all of your various membership groups and different bodies that you work with. So in my case, I can click upload to add my new document. And in my case, I'm just going to go to my downloads here, and I'm just going to add a copy of this PowerPoint. That's all I'm going to do. And there is the PowerPoint. Now, you can always, like I showed before, you can always drag and drop onto these fields as well. But when I do this, I'm simply going to hit submit. And that document is going to go out to all of the folks that are on the mailing list that goes to. We'll give it just a second to come through Outlook. Hopefully we haven't caused Outlook headaches today. But when this comes through, you'll see that we have the ability there to have that attachment to the document. When it comes through, I'll get a notification on my watch, and we'll come back to that one. Now, the way that works is very similar, only it's a lot fewer steps. So basically, all we're doing is we're running a workflow that does all the heavy lifting, just like the one I showed you earlier, and then saving a copy of the communication to a folder. And so if I come down here and look at the folders for the various communication logs, and this would show email documents to fund administrators, email new document, general fund notification, you know, some of the ones I've already done today. And if you look at the date and time, you'll see this 2025 one here is the one I just did. It's already saved to Laserfiche. And you'll see the option here where it talks about the prospectus. And so there's the form that we hit submit on. And then here is our new prospectus. So it's really nice to keep copies of this when you're actually running the processes, but in the process itself, you can have different things like, does it go out through a specific email account? Does it go out through, you know, to only certain people based on the funds? On this one, it would have sent to everyone listed for the 2050 and the 2040 fund. Okay. Now that's kind of our mass communication side. That's a way of using forms to initiate these, to be able to go through and send these things out. But there are a lot of different things that forms and workflow can do. We're all pretty familiar with the repository, and I think one of the things I've noticed in my 20+ years of working with Laserfiche is sometimes we don't have as much time to delve into this would be really cool kind of stuff. So really that's all we're trying to do, is give you some ideas of things that would be helpful. So the next one we'll do, I'm gonna go ahead and close out of these just so that I can keep my tabs clean. Let's go ahead and close out of these, and let's do a different one. Now, if you came to any of the early in the year user group meeting, sorry, had a brain freeze for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and refresh this, and I'm gonna make this one brand new, and I'm gonna use, again, if I grab your name off of the list, just realize I'm just grabbing names so that I have something to put here. What we're going to do is we're going to do a new standard operating procedure. Okay, so this is going to be an emergency action plan, and where this comes from is the emergency action plan. I actually grabbed a PDF off of the state of Texas website. Your states may be slightly different, but if you want to know where I got the one I'm using, it is simply this emergency action plan sample written program from OshCon from the state of Texas, just because it was pretty fleshed out and it had a lot of fillable fields in it. But all we're going to do with the form is go through and insert different company names and locations and the last revised dates and things like that for all the different pieces that are fillable within this PDF. So again, let's go through that. If my first one is, do I want to create a new or existing? I want to create a new one. The company name might be something like, let's just say John's Construction Company. The location, let's say that's in Austin, Texas. And the responsible person is John Sanderson. The designated posting area for this form is in the break room. And there's some questions, for instance, and some of these I pre-populate just to make the process of doing this a little bit easier when I'm doing demos. But the locations, for instance, would be something like, what is our designated assembly area if something happens? If we do shelter in place, where in the building should we go? And for instance, if there's severe weather in Texas, you might have tornadoes, and not so much in Austin generally, but you might have tornadoes in different parts of the country. You might have, you know, blizzards and different things. So we're in severe weather, where do you want folks to go? In my case, I'm going to say the basement. Now, in this case, because it's the state of Texas, they had two different sections for your emergency action plan coordinators. You had English speakers and non-English speakers. So in this case, let's say I want the building to be the Vineyard Street office. The first name is going to be Tracy Dangerfield. Primary position, CIO. And I might want to spell Tracy's name right. Sorry about that. And phone number there, we'll just pick some random number that I've used before. And then for the alternate name, we're going to come through here and let's say this is Peggy Nim. And she is the operation manager and the phone number as well. And then we're going to come in and let's talk about the emergency action plan coordinators that are non-English. Now, I don't know if any of you speaks a language other than English. In Texas, it's probably Spanish, but I'm just going to again grab some names. Let's do Tyler Tomlinson. And might help if I put them in the right field. Let's say this is the IT building, Tyler Tomlinson, and the position is account executive and phone number. And then the other name, let's do Robert Sewell. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And position would be accounting manager and a phone number. So now you also need to have people who are responsible when there's a fire, if EMS needs to be called with an ambulance, or if the police need to be called. And in this case, you can put those names in as well. So we'll have Mark Turner and phone number, and Lori Lambert and phone number, and Matt McCardle and phone number. And let me make these phone numbers different just so that they're different numbers here. Okay. So now when I hit submit, what's going to happen is this form is going to run a workflow that's going to take all of that data that we captured and inject that directly into a fillable PDF that I showed you. So workflow is now working on that. If I come back to the repository, and let me go ahead, and I thought I had it open already, but I do not. So I'm going to just go right here in just a second to open that repository. Let it log me in. And we will go to the operations folder in this repository where this is running. And we are going to go down to policies and procedures. We'll go to emergency procedures, and you'll see one that was created at 12:32. I did one about a half hour before our event, just so that we have some information there. So now when I open this document, you'll see as we go through that we have the filled out emergency action plan. And as we scroll through, you'll see where the fillable fields were, starting on about page 4. So this is the emergency action plan for John's Construction Company in Austin, Texas. The last revised date is today. John Sanderson is our plan manager, John's Construction Company. At the Vineyard office, we have Tracy Dangerfield, who's our CIO at this phone number. Peggy Nims, our operations manager. But then for our non-English speakers, we have one in the IT department, which is Tyler, and Robert is our account manager over there as well. And it's going to go through, and it's also going to have like who our fire person was, our ambulance person, our police, who is in charge of those contacts, what their phone numbers are. And you'll see it's actually just filling out all of that information. But let's say somebody left. Okay, so let's come back to our submission again, and let's say update existing. And I want to update the one we just did. So here's all the information. Notice it pre-filled my form. We have Tracy is still here, but let's say we need to add somebody for a new building. So let's say it's our Atherton office. And that's now going to be Philip Carter. And we'll say that they're the district engineer, this phone number. And then we'll say Sarah Aradiula. Hopefully I said that correctly. And their position is records manager. And we'll just grab another phone number there. And then let's say Mark has left. So Mark Turner is no longer with the institution. Let's say that is now Narisco Mendoza. And we'll hit submit again. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to take the data that was captured from that process, but it's going to create a new form for us. But now, if you notice, we didn't have to type in all the old information from the previous version. So now I have a new one, number 3, that's right here from 1236 today. And we'll go ahead and open this up. And you'll see here that when this opens, we'll scroll down to the section that talks about the different folks. So now we have the Atherton information that we've added with Philip and Sarah. And then if we scroll down to fire, it's now Narisco Mendoza instead of Mark Turner. And all that is just how you use your information. So what's actually happening here, let me go ahead and close these out, is when we run this process, it simply runs a workflow. And the workflow that it runs is just taking the data from the form and injecting it into the PDF. But it's also storing all of that data off to a SQL table. And that's how when you run the form again, I can go back to any one of these forms I've done in the past. If I do update existing, I could go to the one that I did on May 9th. And if I let that data load, that was in Utah. One of the people there was Utah Retirement Systems, and I didn't fill out any of this other. We were just kind of showing the example. But if I come down to the one I did in July on the 2nd, City of Carmel, Parks and Rec, the Parks Building, Laura, Seth, Pam, and Eric. And I could start from this with our information. So what's happening is the workflow put all the data into SQL. And if I say update existing, it finds all the information from SQL. And so in this case, if I went to the newest one we did, it's going to ask, you'll see Philip Carter there, you'll see Sarah, and you'll see that Narisco is now in charge of our fire contacts. Narisco has a question. Can you type that in the question box? I saw your hand up. I don't know if I can unmute Narisco. Let's see if I can. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Thanks, Narisco. He said just disregard that. But again, if you do have questions, let us know. Happy to unmute you if we need to have a question answer or if we need anything like that. So let's go off to our next one. We have 2 left. This one I think is kind of interesting. This one's going to use a data lookup. This is a real form from one of our real institutions. I just converted it into a web form. And this would be like a member wanting, at a credit union wanting to apply for a wire transfer. Don't get caught up in the weeds on that this is a wire transfer request though. This is the ability of someone to fill out a form, whether that's staff on your side or members on the public side, and when at some point in the process, pass all that information off to a DocuSign template. So I'm simply going to look up a member's account, and when I put in the member number, it's going to look up the rest of their information and pre-fill my form. I'm going to put in a wire transfer PIN, a date of birth. Let's just say, here, let's just do 01/01/1980. Phone number, email. We can come in here and we can say, you know, is it a domestic or a foreign wire? We're going to say vehicle purchase. And it's a $52,000 car. And there's a $25 fee. And you'll notice that when I put that in, it's going to add up and give me my total here. Now, just for the sake of speed, I'm just going to use some autofills that I have here. So there's a correspondent bank option. There's a receiving institution. So that might be, for instance, Metropolitan Credit Union. And their routing number 124000085, phone number, and let's say that their office is on School Bus Road. And then the account number it's going to, we'll send it to my mom. Let's say I'm buying her a car and she's going to use the money for that. There's her account number. I will not put her date of birth in here as well. We'll just say 1960. And again, I'm just going to grab a random address here and we'll put that in there. Now, if I simply hit submit, and I can put some instructions here. This is for the CDI Best of 2024 demo webinar. And I'm going to hit submit. Now, from a forms perspective, that is now complete. Okay. From a forms perspective, forms is essentially done. But if I minimize this and we go back to email, I'm going to have an email show up here in just a second from DocuSign. And my watch just buzzed, so it should be coming in a second. Here is the email, not from forms, but from DocuSign. Now, when we click review document, because it's asking me to sign that document now, when we click review document, what's going to happen is that document is going to load, but it's not going to look like the form we filled out. It's going to look like the fillable PDF that we used to create the form. So you'll notice even down here under special instructions, this is for the CDI Best of 2024 demo webinar. And everything is pre-filled as it came from forms. But now all I need to do is click the sign button and finish. Now, within a few minutes, this will be brought back into Laserfiche, and that Laserfiche document will then be stored in the folder because the account number's on the document, and that can be used as index values when the document comes back. Now, the process I'm using will take about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe 5. So we'll come back to that in just a second, and we'll kind of go off to our next demo option. But just to make sure, let's see, Caitlin, is there any way to use the data lookup part of the form, in this case account number, as a verification process, as in when an external user fills out the form to verify that the information enters matches? Yeah, you actually could. So when the form gets filled out, instead of going straight to DocuSign, you could have it run a workflow, and workflow could take that information, and as part of the workflow itself, so if I come back into the workflow designer, I'd have to open that. That's actually my workflow designer on my local machine. But if I come into the workflow designer, I absolutely could do that. And you could have an option that says, if this matches the account number, like pick a couple of pieces of information that they typed in. If it matches what you have in your system, then go ahead and send the workflow or send the document to DocuSign. If it does not match what's in there, and right here's our workflow. If it does not match, we could add a piece into the workflow that does a little verification. And if it does, run this part, which is send the DocuSign envelope. If it does not match, then send it to the staff, like send information back to the form to just go to the staff for approval. And then if it has to go through an approval process, it can come back and hit this again. So if they need to fix some things on the form so that it matches, yeah. Hopefully that answers your question, Caitlin. It's just how you design the workflow to do that. So we might have had enough time. Let me just take a peek here and look and see if that wire transfer has come in yet. Generally, I have that go into an auto file workflow, and it would be right here at 11:42. So it has come in. The wire transfer has come in. It's been signed. If I click on that, you'll see the document as it came back from DocuSign. Not only does it have the DocuSign envelope ID, and it's obviously got my demo stamp on there because this is not a real DocuSign account. But if I scroll down, you'll see the signature right here. You can zoom in on that. Not only that, it's also got the certificate of completion attached to it, which is a really nifty thing to have with that. So with the certificate of completion, it just means that you got everything that you need here. Plus, on the way in my scenario, I converted the PDF from DocuSign back to images. So in case this needs to be merged into another document, such as maybe it needs to go, there needs to be supporting documentation scanned into this, I can now click the scan button up here at the top of Laserfiche and attach those items to the wire transfer. So for instance, if you had to go through and have your information set up to show that you sent the wire, because this just is the wire itself, right? And this is the first one, actually. Let me go back to, let me close this and go to this guy. It actually just brought both of them back. Here's the one that we did earlier. So there's our info. Let's see. Oh, the last one. Sorry, I got off track just a little bit. So the last one I want to do is let me go into our financial repository here. And I think I'm still signed into it. If not, I apologize if it takes a second to sign me in. So this is the PDF merging. Now, this is just a really quick idea. If I come into my temp folder, and like I said, I just finished building this an hour ago, well, 2 hours ago now, I can take these documents, and in my case, I'm just using a folder, but it could be the documents could be all over the place. But in my case, I want to take this statement, this example statement here, and I want to merge all of these together. Now, if I did this with Laserfiche dragging on top, that's not going to work very well. It's going to create images, and then those images are going to try to merge, but it's not going to actually merge the PDFs. In my case, it's really simple. The way I'm driving this workflow is that staff, all they have to do is click on the tags and add a tag to the document itself. So in my case, let's take this color account summary, because whatever one I start with is going to be what the new one's name is going to include, because this is my primary document. So if I simply come here to tags and I choose PDF merge, it's the only tag I have in this repository, click OK. Give it a few seconds. You'll see that it started. We've got a padlock here. As soon as the padlock goes away, that'll mean that we are done. So the padlock has gone away, and I'm simply going to open this document. And what you're going to see is you'll see with this document as it opens that now I have taken all of those various statements. While it's loading, there's going to be some from a company called BDI, IDS, Sage Direct, a couple of other options. I can't remember who these are. I think that's BIT or one of the other companies that we've worked with in the past. These are just samples from some of our vendor friends that we use for our demos. So we have the statement of account. We have the BDI statements. There was 2 of those. The BDIs again there, because that was a separate document. There's actually 2 of them in that folder. We have the mortgage statement here, the credit card statement, and you can see the names are a little bit different. We got Morris McGillicuddy, we have Miles Millennium. But if I scroll down here, and we've got some from Diamond Marketing, we've got some from IDS. That company's since changed names, so is Diamond Marketing, by the way, and Sage Direct. So it's taken all of those various statements, but the difference is it didn't convert them all to images. Sometimes you want the document to remain as a PDF. So in this case, the document remains a PDF because it actually merges them as PDFs. So that's kind of the gist of what we wanted to go over. That one I went over kind of quick. If you want me to kind of go through and show you the workflow. This one does require a custom activity, as does the DocuSign one we showed. Those are both custom workflow activities developed by CDI that if you don't have, you can always add to your system. Just talk to your account manager about that. But the one you need here is the PDF tools that are part of workflow. The one for the wire transfer were the document, the DocuSign toolkit, tools for workflow. So I'm pretty much done. Does anybody have any questions, any last minute questions? We have about 9 minutes left. So if not, we can just end this and go back to PowerPoint here so we can have our little question slide. So if you have any questions, let us know. Are there additional costs for the PDF tools? Yes, Emily, those are an additional cost for those to merge the PDFs. I would check with you. I'm not sure how much they are, but I would check with your account manager to see how much those would be. So there's simply custom activities that CDI has written to do things that workflow doesn't do natively. Anything you can do with the toolkit can be written as a custom workflow activity generally. If you need any assistance on those, just let us know. I'll be happy to get you some documentation on what all the items are as well. Can you convert files to PDFs? Let's see what Mark says. Can you convert files to PDFs and then to the merge? I believe so. I would have to look and see if there's a tool to convert to PDF first, but that one shouldn't matter because you could do the merge, unless you're merging existing image documents with PDFs, then yes, you'd have to do that merge first. The purge or the PDF documents, if they're all images, at the end you can export them all, merge them all together, and then export them as a PDF. But if you're trying to take image documents, which Mark, I assume is what you're trying to do, you could take those and move those to PDF first, and then do the PDF merge on those documents so that you now have one PDF to send out. Okay, thanks, Mark. I'm glad my assumption was correct. So yeah, Peggy, we were just talking about the ability to convert multiple PDFs into a single PDF. And when I say convert, I'm really creating a new document, but not removing the old. Now, if I wanted to, there could have been a step in that workflow that deleted the original PDFs or moved them to a processed folder for deletion after 10, 15, 20 days, something like that. But that's what we were talking about. And this will be recorded. And I assume Julio will put this up on our YouTube channel so that you can review this later. Now, if there's no other questions, just feel free to give us a shout. You can go to our website at cdi.support, go to our client success page where you can see some of the different options we have at cdi.support/client-success. And then finally, our YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and look for CDI_official. But outside of that, we are done. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you very much. Hopefully you had a good holiday and your holidays are going well for you, and hopefully you can get some value out of this as well. If there's anything we can do for you, please feel free to reach out to your account manager to support. We're happy to be there for you. So outside of that, that would be the end of it. And thank you everyone for attending.